In the pitch-black waters off Guadalcanal, Japanese sailors trembled at whispers of an American cruiser that spat fire like a Gatling gun, shells ripping the night at impossible speeds. They called her the machine gun cruiser, and for good reason. The USS Helena CL-50 cheated death at Pearl Harbor, absorbed a torpedo meant for a battleship, and came back roaring with vengeance that rewrote Pacific naval warfare. This is the electrifying saga of a light cruiser that refused to sink, a crew of 868 warriors who turned steel into legend, and a ship that proved grit could outgun destiny. The saga of the USS Helena did not begin amid gunfire, but during the hardships of the Great Depression. As the United States gradually rebuilt its economy, the Navy launched a bold initiative to revitalize its outdated fleet. The St. Louis-class cruisers embodied a fresh approach to naval architecture, vessels capable of delivering devastating strikes while possessing the agility to evade destruction. When her keel was laid at the Brooklyn Navy Yard on that chilly December day in 1936, few foresaw the extraordinary path ahead for hull number 50. The laborers who fastened her plates and forged her armor were constructing far more than a mere warship. They were shaping a tool of endurance and payback. Helena measured 608 feet from bow to stern, her streamlined form slicing the sea with a beam of only 61 feet. Yet her true strength resided in her weapons. 15 6-inch guns housed in 5 triple turrets enabled a broadside capable of unleashing devastation. These were no standard naval cannons. The Mark 16 guns could reload at a staggering pace. Under ideal circumstances, each barrel fired 8 to 10 rounds per minute. Consider the calculation. That equated to as many as 150 shells per minute from her primary armament alone. It is no surprise the Japanese dubbed her the machine gun cruiser. Her secondary arsenal included 8 5-inch dual-purpose guns, adept at repelling aircraft or hammering destroyers. 4 Parsons turbines propelled her at 32.5 knots, powered by 8 Babcock and Wilcox boilers generating 100,000 horsepower through 4 bronze propellers. With a reach of 10,000 nautical miles, she could pursue foes across the vast Pacific. Statistics, however, capture only part of her essence. What truly distinguished Helena was her crew, 868 officers and enlisted men who converted metal and explosives into near-eternal resilience. Helena entered the East River on August 27, 1938, christened by the senator from Montana's wife. The champagne bottle shattering against her bow was intended to invoke fortune. Whether it succeeded depended on one's view of luck. Her initial service unfolded like a peaceful voyage log. Commissioned in September 1939, she headed south to Uruguay, where her sailors received a foreboding glimpse of what lay ahead. The scuttled remains of the German pocket battleship Grafspee lay in Montevideo harbor, wrecked after the Battle of the River Plate. Young Americans gazed at the mangled steel and pondered if it foretold their own end. The Pacific summoned, and Helena responded. By September 1940, she integrated into the Pacific Fleet, honing her lethal skills in Hawaiian waters for months. Gunnery practice, damage control drills, navigation exercises, the relentless cycle that turned ordinary citizens into combatants. As 1941 waned, Helena docked at Mare Island Navy Yard for enhancements. Anticipating the gathering tempest, the Navy equipped her with new 1.1-inch anti-aircraft guns. It was akin to arming a fighter with reinforced knuckles on the eve of a brawl. On the morning of December 7, 1941, Helena lay at berth 1010 in Pearl Harbor's Navy Yard, battleships lined up neatly across the harbor along Ford Island. The mighty Pennsylvania, queen of the battle line, was meant to take Helena's spot, but destiny intervened. The dry dock required Pennsylvania more urgently than the pier needed Helena. At 0757, Lieutenant Commander Shigeru Murata guided 9 Kate torpedo bombers toward what he mistook for Pennsylvania. In the dawn mist, Helena's silhouette resembled a battleship sufficiently to doom her. Only the lead aircraft dropped its payload, a Type 91 torpedo that streaked through the calm harbor at 40 knots. The weapons slipped under the mainlayer Oglala, Moored alongside, it impacted Helena at frame 75 below her armor belt. The blast tore through her engineering compartments like a colossal blow. Engine room 1 and boiler room 2 instantly became mangled tombs of machinery. Seawater poured in through a gash wide enough for a vehicle. Yet Helena retaliated swiftly. In just 2 minutes, 120 seconds, her forward diesel generator thundered to life. Electricity surged to her gun mounts. As Japanese aircraft circled for a second assault, Helena's anti-aircraft batteries thundered in resistance. 4 bombs bracketed her in the follow-up wave, each near miss pelting her decks with shrapnel. The vessel that ought to have perished remained buoyant through feats of damage control and unbreakable human spirit. 40% of her crew perished, over 100 injured, but Helena endured. In the wardroom, blood mingled with oil as medics labored to preserve lives. On deck, gunners held their stations amid falling comrades. The Japanese aviators who claimed her sunk committed a grave error. They had roused the sibling of a slumbering colossus, and she would not forget. Following Pearl Harbor, Helena appeared as a critical patient in recovery. Water sloshed within her battered frame, with emergency pumps running ceaselessly to sustain her, but a defiant pulse beat beneath the ruin. By December 9th, merely 2 days post-attack, Helena hobbled into dry dock number 2. Yard workers descended like physicians on a vital case. Steel patches were fashioned, formed, and fused over her injuries. These interim fixes would suffice until a full repair facility. The transit to Mare Island in January 1942 challenged every seam and fastener. Ocean swells probed her mended hull for flaws. Her crew maintained constant watch at damage stations, prepared to reinforce any failure. Their concerns proved unfounded. Helena was more resilient than apparent. At Mare Island, she experienced a rebirth exceeding simple mending. The Navy had absorbed harsh truths from Pearl Harbor, and Helena reaped the benefits. Her confining tower, which hampered night visibility, yielded to an open bridge. Where obsolete 1.1-inch Chicago pianos had been, crews installed 4 quadruple 40mm Bofors guns, Swedish ingenuity encased in American might. The true breakthrough arrived in electronics. Helena gained the SG Surface Search Radar, a wonder that pierced night and mist to detect foes at seemingly magical distances. Paired with new FC and FD fire control radars, she could engage blindly, a vital edge in the close quarters clashes of the Solomons. While shadows hid vessels from sight, radar allowed Helena to detect without detection. Under Captain Robert H. English, followed by Captain Phillip until September 1942, her crew trained with zealous fervor. They harbored scores to settle. Gunners rehearsed until loading and firing became instinctive. Damage control parties drilled sealing breaches and extinguishing blazes until reactions were reflexive. Every sailor grasped their purpose, returning to the Pacific not as prey, but as predators. In mess decks, talk turned to retribution. In engine spaces, machinists extracted maximum output from turbines. Helena was not merely fixed. She emerged as a weapon of reprisal. By July 1942, she stood prepared. Crossing under the Golden Gate Bridge en route to the South Pacific, her crew lined the rails. Some bid farewell to loved ones ashore. Others gazed westward toward the foe who struck first. The machine gun cruiser sailed to battle. The Solomon Islands in late 1942 formed a verdant inferno where America and Japan contested every inch of terrain. Guadalcanal, with its vital airfield, became the Pacific War's relentless crucible. Nightly, Japanese destroyers and cruisers dashed down the slot, the passage between the island chains, to bolster troops and shell U.S. positions. By early October, Helena operated in Task Force 64 under Rear Admiral Norman Scott. Unlike admirals fixated on battleship formations, Scott recognized radar, and swift volleys would dominate these seas. He rigorously trained his units in nocturnal tactics, though he oddly selected USS San Francisco as flagship over the radar superior Helena. On October 11, 1942, Judgment Day neared as U.S. scouts detected Admiral Aritomo Goto's squadron approaching Guadalcanal. 3 heavy cruisers and 2 destroyers laden with troops and shells. Scott arrayed his force off Cape Esperance, poised to unleash naval history's ambush. As night descended, Helena's SG radar operator, radioman 3rd Class Robert S. Brown, peered into his screen. At 2,325, a glowing contact emerged. Enemy vessels at 27,700 yards. Helena sighted the Japanese before they suspected American pursuit. Chaos ensued in ordered form. Scott, blinded aboard San Francisco, commanded a column maneuver that inadvertently crossed the Japanese T, ideal for ambush. On Helena's bridge, Captain Gilbert C. Hoover, who took command in September, grew impatient. His radar revealed foes at 5,000 yards, virtually melee distance, yet Scott withheld firing clearance. At last, at 2,346, Scott's vague acknowledgement to a query was taken as authorization. Helena's turrets, locked on target, exploded into action. The opening barrage struck heavy cruiser Aoba unprepared. 6-inch projectiles smashed her bridge, slaying Admiral Goto outright and injuring her captain. The admiral perished, convinced his own fleet fired upon him. He never fathomed Americans striking from obscurity with such accuracy. Helena's cannons attained firing rates bordering on unreal. Expended casings cascaded like golden hail as crews synchronized flawlessly. Continuous flashes illuminated the night, cementing her enduring nickname. Heavy cruiser Furutaka attempted to protect the flagship, but entered a maelstrom of steel. Helena's rounds ignited her torpedo tubes and long lance weapons, Japan's dreaded arms, detonating aboard. Furutaka blazed like a pyre before submerging into darkness. In 14 minutes, the clash ended. Helena expended over 1,400 rounds, her barrels glowing red-hot. The Battle of Cape Esperance marked America's initial decisive surface triumph over the Imperial Navy. Helena validated that U.S. cruisers could prevail in night engagements, the enemy's preferred domain. As sunrise came, oil films and wreckage denoted Japanese graves. Helena's weary yet elated crew savored their first win. It would not be their final. November 1942 intensified desperation on Guadalcanal for both nations. Japan readied a huge resupply convoy, with Admiral Scott's triumphant task force, now under Rear Admiral Daniel J. Callahan, as the sole obstacle. Callahan, courageous but novice in night fighting, repeated Scott's error by choosing San Francisco as flagship over radar-equipped Helena. On the night of November 12–13, Helena's radar foretold again. Around 0124, her SG display revealed Japanese ships invading Iron Bottom's Sound, the Guadalcanal waters strewn with hulks earning their macabre title. 2 battleships, Hiei and Kirishima, spearheaded a bombardment armada to obliterate Henderson Field. What ignited at 0148 resembled a saloon brawl with 14-inch artillery. The U.S. line nearly collided with the Japanese. Vessels blasted at knife-fight ranges, often uncertain of friend or foe. Searchlights pierced the gloom. Star shells illuminated above, tracers weaving lethal patterns. Helena's radar conferred a decisive advantage in the frenzy. While others groped for identification, her fire control locked electronically. She targeted what crew identified as a battleship, likely Hiei, at mere 4,200 yards. Her swift salvos raked the foe, igniting fires and blasts. Destroyer Akatsuki fatally spotlighted Helena. Every U.S. ship in range converged fire. Helena's 6-inch shells merged with 5-inch and 8-inch in a barrage that disintegrated Akatsuki. She erupted massively, claiming nearly all hands. Helena then unleashed on 3 additional destroyers, cycling so rapidly that Japanese witnesses believed Americans wielded automatic cannons. One limped away aflame, another halted lifeless, the third escaped trailing smoke. Amid it, Helena evaded barrages, engineers redlining turbines. Once, San Francisco crossed her line, mandating a ceasefire that likely spared allies. Friendly fire that night felled Admiral Callahan and San Francisco's Captain Cassin Young, valiant leaders cut down in turmoil. After 40 minutes of brutal close combat, Japan retreated. Hye, pummeled by scores of hits including Helena's, lagged with steering failure. U.S. aircraft dispatched her next day, the war's first Japanese battleship loss. Helena escaped with one fatality and light damage. Her gunners loosed over 1,500 rounds, barrels ruined by intensity. Yet she halted the Tokyo Express decisively. Without that shelling, Henderson Field endured to deploy aircraft ravaging Japanese transports soon after. As November 13 dawned, Iron Bottom Sound claimed fresh victims. Helena shone once more, but costs mounted with each fight. Between epic clashes, Helena endured a punishing grind that tried souls as much as war. The Solomons granted no respite. If enemy fire spared you, fever might not. Helena's men acquired the hollow gaze of Guadalcanal hardened veterans, aged prematurely by unending alert. Shipboard life pulsed to conflict's beat. General quarters at twilight and dawn when subs lurked, days shelling Japanese Guadalcanal strongholds, cratering jungle forts. Nights patrolling the slot, radar watchers straining for enemy blips. Crew forged a unique bond from peril. Helena's laundry earned fame, delivering crisp uniforms post-battle. The ship's band, Helena's hotshots, swung tunes on deck between fights. Their blues in the night echoed to nearby vessels. Rations. Spam, powdered eggs, wrench-floating coffee. Fresh produce a distant dream. The functioning ice cream machine yielded the Pacific's prized treasure. Men bartered dearly for a Dixie cup of vanilla. Captain Hoover steered steadily. Eschewing fame, he prized survival as victory here. He drilled relentlessly but allowed relief. Fantail movies, forecastle bouts, reminders of home. His November 23 relief, for inadequately reporting USS Juneau's torpedoing, devastated the crew. Fresh from Inferno, their leader fell to perceived bureaucracy. Replacement Captain Charles P. Cecil, taking over in December 1942, earned trust from a wary bunch. He guided them to their concluding trials. December 1942 into January 1943 merged in monotony and fatigue. Helena shelled Villa and Munda, escorted convoys, pursued radar phantoms. Crew mastered sea and sky cues. Spotting torpedo wakes or bomb drops a heartbeat sooner meant life. By February 1943, Helena craved overhaul. Engines labored, rifling worn, hulls scarred by close calls. Sydney, Australia beckoned like Eden, real meals, chilled ale, English-speaking company. Brief weeks revived memories of tranquility, but conflict waited for none. By April, Helena returned to the Solomons, armament renewed, crew rejuvenated. The campaign's next leap loomed, slot runs persisted. The machine gun cruiser had duties ahead. As spring 1943 became summer, U.S. forces readied to ascend the Solomon ladder. New Georgia's Munda airfield marked the next gory rung toward Tokyo. Helena contributed to pre-invasion barrages pulverizing defenses. The pattern grew lethally routine. Infiltrate contested waters veiled by night, demolish targets, flee before dawn's vengeance. On May 13th, Helena commanded a Vila bombardment, shells methodically erasing fuel stores and quarters. Japan wiser, relocated inland, yet Helena destroyed aplenty. June 1943 escalated operations. Reports of vast Japanese reinforcements demanded every U.S. cruiser intercept. Helena's seasoned crew readied with somber precision. Magazines overflowed with ammo, damage gear staged, letters penned just in case. On June 30, Operation Toenails, New Georgia Invasion, launched. Helena supported landings at Rendover, 6-inch rounds clearing 100-yard jungle paths. Japanese coastal guns sporadically replied, splashes creeping until silenced by counterfire. July 4, 1943, Independence Day, saw Helena pounding Munda airfield. Bolstered enemy flak burst black in skies. Helena's 40mm retorted, tracers sketching democracy against tyranny. Evening brought refueling at Tulagi, oil, munitions for another nocturnal task. Intel flagged a Tokyo Express, destroyers speeding south with New Georgia reinforcements. Task Force 68, Helena pivotal, would block in Kula Gulf. Crew felt the mission's weight. perhaps the forecasted full moon stripping night cover, though radar endured, or heavy cruiser reports, or odds finally aligning. Helena had cheated death too often unscathed. As July 5 yielded to 6, Helena steamed into Kula Gulf for the final time. Her elite radar team would detect first, as ever. Guns would thunder with signature rapidity, but now the foe would retaliate with force even the machine gun cruiser could not withstand. The moon ascended over Kula Gulf like a beacon, silvering the seas and denying Americans nocturnal shroud. Admiral Walden L. Ainsworth, flag in Honolulu, led Task Force 68 post-midnight July 6, 1943. Helena trailed in line, radar already plotting northwestern contacts. Japan had adapted from prior defeats. Admiral Teruo Akiyama's group, 10 destroyers with Type 93 Long Lance torpedoes, 20,000-yard reach at 49 knots. Crucially, they countered U.S. radar with new maneuvers. At 0136, Helena's radar pinged enemies at 22,000 yards. Unusually, Japanese detectors matched, spotting Task Force 68 near simultaneously. Both closed for a duel where velocity trumped armor. At 0157, Ainsworth signaled attack. Helena's tracking turrets burst forth. Initial volleys hammered destroyer Niizuki, Akiyama's flagship, at 11,000 yards, manageable for veterans. Niizuki stood no chance. Second salvo struck, successors ravaged her. Shells triggered torpedo warheads, demolished bridge, gutted hull. Akiyama perished early, final vision, muzzle flares dooming him, yet as Niizuki sank, consorts loosed long lances. 10 destroyers salvoed before high-speed withdrawal, sacrificing guns for torpedo precision. Nearly 50 torpedoes sped toward the U.S. line. Helena redirected to destroyer Suzukaze, radar-guided accuracy holding despite distance. But a fatal misstep. Early barrages used scarce flashless powder for night ops. Exhausted, she switched to standard, each volley now flashing like thunder, pinpointing her for Japanese aim. Around 0203, fortune failed. 3 long lances hit rapidly, commencing the machine gun cruiser's end. First forward of turret 1, cataclysmic. Either magazine ignited or 1,080-pound warhead severed bow. Turret 1 erupted in 200-foot flame pillar. Shockwave buckled bulkheads, hurling men like dolls. Before response, second and third amidships below belt shattered keel. Ship's spine. Engines flooded. Turbines halting as water surged. Power died. Compartments dark save lanterns and fire. Captain Cecil grasped the mortal wounds. Keel fractured. She jackknifed. He issued the dreaded command, abandon ship, yet gunners persisted. Settling, aft turrets fired on. Turret 4 until handling rooms inundated. Turret 5 manually aimed until list prevented elevation. Helena fractured thrice. Bow to turret 2 gone. Stern with near 400 men floated separate. Center, bridge, engines, capsized, sank swiftly. Men battled oil-slicked seas, injured, stunned from fight to float. Destroyer Nicholas braved torpedoes to rescue. Crews hauled aboard while guns warded Japanese finishing survivors. July 6 dawn, Kula Gulf debris strewn, near 500 Helena men adrift. Bow and stern afloat as rafts for hundreds. But Japanese planes loomed, Ainsworth agonized. Nicholas and Radford saved 739 overnight via human chains. Radar warned lingering enemy, airstrike certain. Ainsworth withdrew, abandoning hundreds. For waterbound, July 6 tested limits. Sun scorched, saltwater agonized wounds. Sharks circled blood. Groups buoyed injured, shared rafts. On floating stern, Lieutenant Commander John L. Chu organized, rations from stores, watches, order. Japanese planes strafed, men sheltered under wreckage. Night, 2 U.S. destroyers tried rescue, repelled by foes. Another night clinging, toll rising from wounds, sharks. End seemed near, but Coastwatcher Reverend A. W. E. Sylvester on Vela La Vela reported positions, liaised natives for aid. July 7 to 8 night. Nicholas, Jenkins, transport stent, waters returned. Whaleboats, rafts extracted 165 from sea and stern, which sank mid-rescue, as if Helena lingered for crew safety, yet 88 drifted to Japanese-held Vela La Vela. Weak evading patrols via native guides, coast watchers, subsisted coconuts, rainwater, nocturnal travel to northwest coast. July 16th, destroyers Taylor, Maury, Gridley, Ralph Talbot, daring daylight extraction under Japanese eyes. Of 868 crew, about 168 lost in Kula Gulf, or rescues, 700 endured, owed to destroyer heroism and survivor grit. Helena's chapter might close in Kula Gulf, another solemn and toll. But legends persist. Wardrooms and clubs echoed tales of the swiftest firing cruiser. Her volleys mythologized. Navy bestowed 7 battle stars, 1st Navy unit commendation to a ship, citing Cape Esperance, Guadalcanal, Kula Gulf, turns in Pacific tide. Influence transcended honors. Radar night success standardized, flashless powder vital, learned in blood. Damage protocols updated from loss. Decades Helena lay undisturbed in Kula Gulf, site unknown. Survivors reunited, thinning but vivid, gun thunder, deck vibration, lost brothers. April 2018, Paul Allen's RV Petrel found her at 2,800 feet. Cameras showed hull 50 on stern, turrets aimed as if battle-ready. Discovery closed circles for crew, kin, confirming rest. Today, Helena is wargrave and symbol, thousands in World War II's pivotal sea fights. Lessons eternal in bravery, tenacity, sacrifice. Pearl survivor to Tokyo Express terror, she proved heroes need not be unbreakable, merely unyielding. From Depression Brooklyn birth to Solomon tropical demise, Helena mirrored U.S. resolve. Built by job-needy workers, manned by youths matured, led by officers adapting new warfare, she was democracy forged in steel. Japanese rightly feared the machine gun cruiser. Beyond guns, radar, 868 Americans rejecting defeat, converting Pearl tragedy to Cape Esperance, Guadalcanal glory. Even sinking, she demanded toll, firing till waves took her. In cooler depths, Helena guards eternally. Coral adorns turrets, fish traverse halls, but legacy endures. She was the fighter earning her name through will, a tribute to the generation preserving freedom. They named her machine gun, she honored it to the last. In naval lore, few battled fiercer, fell nobler, or bequeathed greater pride than USS Helena CL-50. She was, as crew knew, one hell of a fighting ship.